Phuoc Thu Province, South Vietnam. April 1969, the air was suffocating. Thick with humidity. Heavy with decay. The jungle breathed rot, wet earth, and something older, something predatory. Captain Mike Walsh stopped dead in the elephant grass. He forced himself not to swallow, not to blink, not even to let his breathing change. Every instinct screamed that the jungle was listening. Ahead of him, 4 men from the Australian Special Air Service Regiment prepared to move. But this wasn't a military maneuver. It looked like a ritual. No voices. No whispered commands. Only movements so slow, so deliberate, they barely registered as motion at all. Doc Walsh had been in combat for years. U.S. Special Forces. Multiple deployments. He had trained elite soldiers all over the world. And still, he almost missed the signals. A trooper adjusted the straps of his heavy pack, inch by inch, as if speed itself were dangerous. Another checked the action on his L1A1 rifle. His fingers glided over cold steel with practiced familiarity, never once taking his eyes off the tree line. Walsh had been embedded with the Australians for 2 weeks. He was part of a high-priority U.S. Army assessment team. His orders from the Pentagon were simple and absolute. Observe them. Understand them. Learn how to replicate them. Washington was desperate. No. One could explain the numbers. Tiny 4-man patrols were achieving kill ratios of 10-1, 20-1, sometimes even higher. Meanwhile, massive American formations, backed by artillery, helicopters, jets, and napalm, were bleeding men while chasing an enemy that refused to stand and fight. The lead scout, a wiry corporal from Perth with sun-leathered skin and sharp, predatory eyes, caught Walsh's gaze. He gave the slightest nod, and then it happened. One moment. 4 men stood in the grass. The next, they were gone. No snapped branches. No rustling leaves. No clinking deer. The jungle simply absorbed them. Walsh waited 30 seconds, counting heartbeats. Then he tried to follow. First step, fine. Second step, disaster. His boot crushed to dry. Branch. Crack. To Walsh. The sound was deafening, like a rifle shot echoing through the valley. He froze, heart pounding, silently cursing himself. The Australians were already 300 meters ahead, invisible, silent. Hunting got the report that night, inside the safety of the base perimeter. Walsh sat beneath a dim lantern and wrote his official assessment. He chose his words carefully. Then he stopped and wrote a single word: 0. At the time, he had no idea what he had just done. That one word would trigger 3 years of obsession inside the Pentagon. Millions of dollars would be spent trying to disprove it. New schools would be built. Doctrines rewritten. Men pushed to their physical and psychological limits. And in the end, they would fail. Completely. 1966. When the Australians arrived. When? The first Australian SAS squadron arrived in Vietnam in 1966. American generals reacted with polite interest and quiet amusement. To U.S. command, this was symbolic. A political gesture from an ally. About 120 SAS operators joining a war already consuming over 500,000 American troops. Colonel James Patterson later summed up the attitude perfectly. We appreciated the gesture. But honestly, we thought, what can 100 guys possibly do? We had divisions. B-52s, napalm. The Australian way of war looked outdated to American planners. 4 to 6-man patrols. Weeks in the jungle without resupply. No artillery on call. No airstrikes unless death was imminent. They demanded autonomy and rejected nearly every pillar of modern U.S. warfare. General William Dupuy, a firm believer in overwhelming force, said it bluntly. In 1966, It looked either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. American strategy rested on two foundations: firepower and mobility. Search and destroy. If you found the enemy, you didn't engage him. You annihilated him. Helicopters swarmed. Artillery leveled the ground. Jets turned jungle into firestorms. Why walk when you could fly? Why whisper when you could be loud and lethal? But the Australians walked. And more importantly, they didn't search. They hunted. They stalked. They avoided fair fights. Captain Bob Kiernan of the SAS explained it simply. We weren't interested in being brave. We were interested in winning. Results that ended the laughter in their first 6 months operating in Phuoc Thu province. The Australians posted a kill ratio of 2:1-1. They weren't just killing enemy soldiers. They were dismantling the Viet Cong system itself. Weapons caches disappeared. Secret trails were mapped. Senior commanders were eliminated with surgical precision. By early 1967, curiosity in Saigon had turned into desperation. The Pentagon demanded answers. How were they doing this? And more importantly, could Americans do it too? The answer was no. The cult of competence, the Australian SAS, wasn't just a unit. It was a culture. Cult of competence. Its roots trace directly to the British SAS. Forged in North Africa in 1941. Selection never truly ended. As one veteran put it, you never finish selection. You're always being tested. In the 1960s, SAS selection lasted 6 months. Over 80% failed. Physical fitness was expected. Mental resilience was mandatory. Candidates learned tracking from Aboriginal trackers who read ground like a language. Jungle survival from veterans of the Malayan emergency. Navigation, medicine, languages. DEMOLITIONS. By the time a man earned the sand-colored beret, he had trained longer than most soldiers would during their entire first enlistment. These weren't infantrymen with better weapons. They were specialists in survival itself. The ambush, their missions were simple. Reconnaissance. Their methods were anything but helicopters inserted patrols at dusk, kilometers away from their true targets. Movement happened only at night. During the day, they hid, watching, listening, counting. Communications were restricted to brief, coded transmissions every 48 hours. They could cover 50 kilometers in a week without firing a shot. Waiting. When they struck, it was methodical. Ambushes were planned like surgical procedures. Targets were tracked for days. Habits studied. Leadership identified. Kill. Zones were chosen where escape was impossible. Engagement. Distance was terrifyingly close. Often under 20 meters. The opening volley killed the point man and rear guard simultaneously. The trap snapped shut. 15 seconds of precise, controlled fire. Then silence. Bodies searched. Documents collected. And the jungle swallowed them again. Operation Marston. In February 1967, U.S. Command authorized Operation Marston. Captain Walsh accompanied Sergeant Bodle's patrol into the long high hills. For 3 days, they moved through terrain American units considered impassable. Streams were crossed by feeling for submerged rocks with bare toes to avoid splashing. Mud-covered ridges were climbed using roots. Never breaking a branch. At night, they lay motionless in the rain, covered in leeches and insects. Walsh later said the discomfort was unbearable. The Australians never moved. On the 4th day, Bodle found it, a trail junction. Fresh footprints. A crushed cigarette butt. Grass bent and slowly springing back. Large enemy unit had passed recently. The patrol took positions. Walsh carried an M16. Against advice, its distinctive sound marking him as American. They waited. 13 hours. At 16:40, the target appeared, A Viet Cong battalion commander. Staff officers. Heavy security. Over 40 armed fighters. 6 Australians. In any conventional army. It would have been suicide. Odell didn't hesitate. Signal wasn't shouted. It wasn't whistled. It was a squeeze of the hand, passed down the line faster than thought. The jungle exploded. 9 enemy soldiers fell in the first 3 seconds. And Captain Walsh finally understood.